Hey guys, it's Amber. We're back on the channel. Thank you so much for joining me today. Today I am going to kind of break down how I plan my garden. So there's a few different resources that I use and a couple of different methods that I have. So let's take a look at them. So as far as my resources go, the first thing that I do is I make a huge list of everything that my family eats on a regular basis. Because again, I feel like I'm at the grocery store for produce way too often. So I want to cut that bill down. And of course I want to grow organic heirloom, fruits and vegetables for my family. So after I made that huge list, I found the seeds that I want to grow. I'm still probably growing too much that won't fit in my garden, but I figured, hey, they'll make really good, summer gifts to my neighbors if I give them a plant that I can't grow in my garden. Maybe they can grow in theirs. And one of the first resources is something actually my husband bought for me for Christmas, which I love. It is my garden journal. So in this, I have taken notes on all the seeds that I've purchased and kind of all the research that I've done on those seeds, what temperature to start the germination process in, when should I plant them, all that kind of stuff. I put it all in my garden journal. Now with this journal, you can also do things like you can note down each trip you take to your garden and what happened and what you saw. So I'm really excited to get that kind of moving. So once I had all of the seeds that I wanted to grow and all those vegetables, I went online to Farmer's Almanac. So I just typed in my zip code, and for my zip code, it was able to tell me my last spring frost and my first fall frost. And those two dates are really important as far as how long your growing season is going to be, when you should put plants into the ground, and when you should make sure that you're harvesting your plants. So with that, it also gave me a list, and I printed it out kind of quickly. So it gave me a list of all the different types of plants and produce that will grow in my area, and when I should harvest them, and when I should plant them in the ground, and things like that. So again, that was just off of the Farmer's Almanac online. And so it'll also give you lots of links to different different vegetables and fruits, and tell you how to grow them, what the best type of variety is for your area, things like that. So that was helpful for me too. So the next thing I did was I took all those dates, and you can put them in your phone or on a calendar, whatever. My phone is jam-packed full of all the kids stuff, so I have a separate calendar of just all my gardening dates. When I should have what plant in the ground, when I should start the seeds for that plant, different things like that. When I should harden them off, that's a big deal. We'll talk about that eventually. And all those things, so I know exactly what day things should be going on and what days I should change stuff up. So next, from there, I looked at my backyard. This, again, will be a brand new garden for our backyard, a space that we have not used yet. So my garden will be roughly 15 by 30 feet. And yes, that'll take up a large part of my backyard, but this will all be worth it in the end. Okay, so now it comes to kind of designing the garden. So when you're designing your garden, there's a few things to take into account. At least for me, there was probably three main things that I wanted to look at. And it sounds like a lot, but when you do your research, you'll kind of figure out what really goes on behind the scenes for designing your garden. So you have that master list of all those plants that you want, all the produce that you're going to grow. And then from there, the first thing that I wanted to look at was called companion planting. So this is a method where one plant will give off different nutrients into the soil and another plant will feed off of that, and vice versa. So plants like onions give off a lot of nutrients into the ground that are really good for other plants. However, and also they kind of repel pests for a lot of other plants. So onions are kind of great to put all throughout the garden. And then there's different things as far as crop rotation that you also need to consider. If you had a garden last year and you planted corn in one area, try to switch that corn up to a different area and plant something else. Things like that. And that's called crop rotation. So that can be year to year, or early and late season. So if you have an early season broccoli, move a late season broccoli somewhere else. I wouldn't put broccoli or any type of plant the same place back to back. So the next thing that I looked at was called interplanting. So interplanting is beneficial for smaller gardens. You can fit a lot into a smaller space. And what interplanting means is putting fast growing crops next to slower growing crops, so that way you get a better outcome for your harvest season. So things like radishes. Radishes are roughly 20 days to maturity on average, sometimes a little longer, but they sprout up quite quickly. So when you're putting radishes next to carrots or things like that, you're going to look at the shade. So where does your sun come in? Will the radish shade other product or other produce so that they can't grow, or is that produce going to be a slow growing produce so that the radish will be harvested before the next one's even really growing too much? So things like that. And the last thing that I thought of was my cold frame. We're really going to push this season to a 4-season garden. So I am going to be starting to winter off some plants at the end of the fall, and I'm going to be using that cold frame to continue to grow some plants. So halfway through the season, I want to start my cold frame with my frames off, so that I can utilize that when it does get a little colder out. So that's what I looked at. So I will show you what I have for my design, kind of roughly in the making, and we can go from there. Okay, so this is my rough SketchUp of my garden so far. This is just the key, so I know what's going on, so that's not actually a part of the garden. So as we have it right now, my goal is to have this all fenced in. I do have marigolds starting from seeds. Hopefully I have enough to do a nice perimeter for pests to keep some little animals away. So from start to finish here, we've got our sun coming in this direction. So we have asparagus, and asparagus does come up every year. So we are starting these guys from seed, but they will take about 2 to 3 years before we actually see any fruit from that. So I've got turnips, onions, Brussels sprouts. Off to the side I've got mustard greens and peppers. Those guys are all part of that companion planting. From the research I've done, those guys really like each other. So as well as the shade kind of thing. So I'm really looking at where's the sun coming in, what are my fast moving crops, what are my slower moving crops. So then I did want to make a smaller pathway. Each one of these pathways, again, this is probably not really to scale, but you do want to make sure that you have a way to get into the food. So these will probably be about 12-inch pathways if everything works out well. My cold frame is about 8 feet long and 4 feet wide. So again, probably not to scale, but hopefully I'll get some different food in there. I'm really going to utilize this for root vegetables for the first part, and probably throughout the fall and winter as well. Cauliflower over there, and then again, this is that interplanting method that I have right here, the onions, carrots, radish, and lettuce. Your radish and onions should be faster crops, so we'll see those guys. And then of course your lettuce is pretty quick too, so hopefully the radish is pulled up before the lettuce is really going crazy. And then this again is our companion planting. These are bush beans intermixed with some spinach. And then this is going to be a vertical trellis. On this side I want to do some strawberries. On the opposite side I'm going to do cucumbers and some summer squash. And then these two lines right here will actually be a vertical, not trellis, but a vertical wire that we're going to do our tomato plants on. Again, I've got the early plants in the back so that they do not shade the later plants to come up, so they'll both get enough fruit on the vine. So yep, that is the rough mock-up for right now. Once it's all said and done, I will do another drawing sketch in my journal, so that way I know what I planted where. So when I go to plant again next year, I know exactly where to move some plants around. So that is all for today. Thank you guys so much for stopping by and hanging out. Please like and subscribe and leave a comment and let me know what you guys are thinking if you guys want to see something else. And we will see you again next week. Thanks. Bye.